Well, Dave, I'm working a small college athletic department, and we're kind of facing a big decision coming up here that's me on the leadership team feel is really necessary. But I know just for a fact on the feelers I put out, it's going to be really unpopular with our staff. So I'm really looking for guidance on how to navigate that.
Okay. Well, I would pick up Pat Lencioni's book, The Ideal Team Player, because he says people need to be hungry, humble, and smart. And there's one of these players missing one of these things that is popular with the staff, and they're called the lovable slacker. Okay? They are humble, and they're smart with people, but they're not hungry. And the staff always loves this person, but they're freaking incompetent. They don't get their work done. They got no drive. They don't put the ball in the end zone, to use your world, right? And so if you don't do that, you can't hang out. And when you fire, as a leader, when you fire the lovable slacker, you feel like that they are loved by the staff, because the lovable slacker goes around and spends a lot of time at everybody's desk being lovable instead of getting their work done. And so they're lovable. But people also know that they don't get their work done. And so you might find something like that to be the dynamic. Like, I think this is going to be unpopular because they like this person, but I'm having to let this person go because they're not getting the job done. Am I reading the mail a little bit?
A little bit. It's kind of the right direction. Basically, the kind of give more context, the decision we're looking at is, so college athletics, we're working within organizations. I feel, and the leadership team feels that, a hard right turn into a different organization and a transition might be beneficial in the long term. The staff is going to see that transition in the short term as painful and as somewhat a step down for them career-wise, if that makes sense.
Oh, okay. So you're going to go to a, I don't even know what you're talking about, but I'm going to try to guess and say something. This is not it, I'm sure, because of where you are, but something like we're going to move from the SEC to the ACC.
Yeah, something close to that.
Which in football would be a step down.
right, yeah. So this would be and really this particular step, I've done a lot of research on it. I feel like it'd be more of a lateral step, but it's like the coach is not going to be as revered because they might be looked at as D2 instead of D1. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. That's going to be their perception.
Right.
All
because they're just going to see that distinction, and it's going to hurt their egos a little bit.
Yeah. I don't know if this will work. I'm making it up on the spot because that's what we do here. It occurs to me, there's a story in the Bible, and I watched a guy do this in a leadership conference one time, and I've used it a lot, and it's worked well for me, about Nehemiah. He was allowed by the king to go back to Jerusalem. The walls had been torn down, and so Jerusalem was bare and was being raided by enemies because they had no walls, and Jerusalem was being plundered because they had no walls, and Jerusalem had all these problems because they had no walls. And so Nehemiah was sent back to Jerusalem with the job, with the mandate, with the certification from the king to allow him to rebuild the walls. And instead of just coming back and blowing trumpets and announcing, which is what you're talking about, we're going to change, we're going to build the walls. Instead, he kind of went on a listening tour and went around and talked to people. He talked to the aristocrats. He talked to the soldiers. He talked to the merchants. And he goes, hey, have y'all noticed that the walls are down? And they said, yeah, the walls are down. In other words, he presented the problem. And he did this. He circled back a couple times to where finally they started saying, hey, have you noticed that the walls are down? They're now saying it to him because you're seeing problems that your team that's going to be disillusioned by this move are not seeing. and you're solutioning for problems that they don't believe are there or they don't know are there. So what if you started telling them, here's a problem. I see a problem. And don't present a solution. Just, I see a problem. We've got this problem because we're in this conference. We have this problem. And do that with several coaches, do that with several staff, the ones you're worried about being disillusioned by the move. And if you have the luxury of time, do it 2 or 3 times and try to get them to come to you and say, hey, have you noticed we have this problem because we're not in that conference or because we're in this conference or whatever it is. And if you can get them to recognize and be problem aware, then you can start to say, I think as the leader, I've got to help you all solve this problem. I think we've got to rebuild the walls. And then Nehemiah started rebuilding the walls, and he had everybody's buy-in because they had become problem aware and they bought into the solution. But if he had just come in and announced, we're building the walls, they were going, why? We don't care about the walls. They're not problem aware. And if you announce this, they're not problem aware. It occurs to me. And so even if you lose the morale of a couple of them over time, I still am going to make them through some methodology problem aware.
Gotcha.
So that then when it does come, they at least know. And also while I'm doing that, somewhere in the conversation going, if we changed, that'd probably be like a blow to your reputation because you'd be a coach in this conference instead of that conference, and that might feel funny to you. And just let them know they're seen.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that part of it.
It takes some of the air out of it if they know they've been heard and they know they've been seen, and it's still going to be an ouchie. And you still might actually completely lose one of them because when you turn the car hard right, sometimes the centrifugal force throws people out of the car.
Right.
They can't hang on to the change, no matter what you do. But if you can make them problem aware, go on a listening tour, try to get them to participate in the solution of the problem, you might actually have one of the ones you're the most worried about come to you and suggest you change conferences if you pull this off with finesse and perfectly. I don't know.
Yeah, it's definitely good to hear. It's definitely hear an outside perspective on it.
Yeah, the disclaimer is none of this ever works perfect.
Yeah.
Because I don't always do it perfect, and the person on the other end receiving it is like, I don't give a crap. I like where we are. I like my poop. I'm going to sit in it, just like a toddler, right?
Right.
And they'll just sit there in the problem, I know it stinks, but it's mine, and it's like, yeah, sometimes people do that, and there's nothing you can do to fix that. That's just a toddler. And, that goes with it. So, but you're a great leader to be asking this kind of question, Caden, and and then still have the courage to square your shoulders, stiffen your backbone, and make the call because that's what good leaders do, even if people don't understand. But I'm going to do everything I can to do a listening tour, a problem awareness discussion, an involvement by asking questions, and get them to recognize and see what I'm seeing so at least they go, yeah, he kind of telegraphed that. I knew he was going to throw the pass over there. I knew he was going to do this. But it wasn't like, what the crap? What is Caden doing? And it takes the shock and awe out of it, which is what you want to do, let the air out of that. So very cool, man. You're a good man. You're a good leader. Thank you for calling in. I'm honored to have you in our EntreLeadership audience.